Hi, this is Leila Torres. Today I am going to be sharing the process I follow to paint some colored greens in watercolor. These leaves are a part of a 100-day project I have been participating and featuring on Instagram. Here on my back, you can see some of the paintings I have done. The one that I will demonstrate today is one of them. I have some stills that I prepared as I was painting. So it's not a video where you can see all the painting happening, but I will explain how it was built. It's a close-up of the color grains. I will be sharing my screen and then you will see how I painted those leaves. Actually, if you see this black arrow that I am moving in a circular fashion, follow that arrow along because that's the way I point to different sections as I describe. In many cases, I take my own pictures and I use them as references. This is the first layer I use. I paint on Arches paper, 140 pounds, cold press. I apply one layer of clean water within this shape. So it includes the top leaf, as you see here, but it also includes the back leaves. In the beginning, I do like underpaint so that all of them are unified by one color. This layer is painted wet on wet and then it is allowed to dry. Then I started to paint section by section. In this case, I started from the bottom up. I wetted this area with clean water again, and then I applied some green color, some saturated color. Actually, more than one green. I prepare, usually in my palette, I prepare more than one green, add them so that on the paper they blend. Notice that this line is left unpainted. That's the underpaint, that's the yellow, the green yellow that we see underneath. So I start to paint around it to suggest the veins of the leaf. Here again, I apply a layer of water, and when it is still wet, I add colors that blend. Notice again how I have two different greens. Here, this is a little bit more saturated, and this is a little bit lighter. And under or next to the veins, I started to apply one green that is a little bit more saturated. And I repeat the process with each one of these sections, adding water and then letting 2 or 3 greens blend together. I let this dry a little bit, and then I prepare more greens to work on this area. For this area, I started here working with the same kind of green that I have here, kind of sap green and a mixture of sap and yellow and a little bit of sepia. But then here I wanted to differentiate a little bit, so I prepared more of a cooler green. And you will see it right here. So notice how this green continues to appear just like this, but they are start to blend little by little with this cooler green. And I added also a little bit more in this area, which will be the leaves behind. Notice again how I left the veins unpainted. Once this layer is dry, I move on to the next, and I just paint a smaller section. Notice that it's darker, the green is darker. I also leave some lines unpainted to suggest the veins. Here in the photograph, they are almost invisible, but I want them a little bit more visible in my watercolor. And I painted these three, I added the color as one block. Then later on, I go and make the shading for each one to pull them apart. Notice also how here on the stems of those leaves, I started to add some shading, and here a little bit. I let some darker green blend with the lighter when this was still wet. Then I went ahead and first I damped this area. I got it wet. When it was not too wet, not too shiny, I went ahead and with a smaller brush, I loaded it with color and apply it to the edge. Where the hard edge is, then I have the hardness of that leaf, but where I have water, then here this edge becomes softer. I let this dry before doing this one. When I made that and it dried, I make this one. Hard edge, soft edge. This, as you can see, a lot of color is added here and in all this area compared to the earlier. Actually, I applied clean water first and then I added the color so that it blended. And it blends with the background so that I don't have any hard edge here, but these nice, softer shadows. And by adding some color here over the veins, then they recede a little bit and they don't appear to be too hard. The edges are not too hard, too sharp. Then I added final details. Again, once this dried, then, for instance, in this area, I wetted this area. I left the hard edge here with clean water. Then I added color and let it run or blend right down here. It blended. And as it dried, I charged the brush a little bit more and I added that harder shadow. Also, underneath each one of these veins, I added a soft line of darker green so that the vein pops up and it looks more three-dimensional. Let's look at the process again. So I hope you enjoyed it, and you can visit my website at leilatorres.com. You will find creative inspiration, painting tips, and information about my online watercolor classes.